Hey guys, it's Evan and it's November 7th, 2024, and we're definitely in the fall season here up in New England. I live up in the grim north, and with the time change, it gets very short daytime, and there's this joke in Maine where it's like, when the moon hits your eye at 4:45, it's November. And that's where we are. It's just the darkest time of the year. Now until winter solstice, it's going to be like, if you the sun won't really rise until 7, and it will go down and be dark by like 4:30. It's kind of miserable, but one of the good things about that is it means that it's breeding season. I do actually have to moderate my daytime temperatures or my daytime light cycles so that it extends past 8 hours a day. I do it to about 13-14 hours. What I do is I set my smart plugs so that they go on at sunrise and they turn off at 8 p.m. So like sunrise is at like 7 o'clock at its latest, and then so 7 to 8 you have 13 hours of daylight. But anyways, that's just kind of saying what's going on here in Maine, and I want to show off this girl to you. Now, her name is Ava, and Ava is a 4th generation MAXX Pink Argentine Boa Constrictor Occidentale. She's direct from Bob Guerriere of Ancient Reproductions. And if you haven't heard about Bob G in Ancient Reproduction, he really is one of the founding fathers in modern herpetoculture, and also in particular with BCOs. He's probably the most prominent, well-known, and worked with these most from the most continuously and most selective breeding. And so what he did over generations is he realized that there was natural red in these boas, and he selectively bred them for color. So this is not a morph, this is a polygenic trait, but it looked very different than a wild type 1, although even wild type 1s will have some red in it. And I actually think a lot of these MAXX Pink Boas have gone through and been spread out into most of the captive population in America. I think there's probably a lot of Bob G stock going around in most breeding projects, just because so much has flowed from him. I think a lot of his stuff came from Gene Passette. So that's just kind of like the epicenter of where Argentines came from in America. They're also a closed population in America. You can't get them out of Argentina anymore. So that's one of the other reasons why they have that. But part and parcel to that is being thoughtful about outcrossing. And so I have a couple of males, and I have 4 unrelated females. They're not all adults, but so through that I should be able to put together at least 8 pairings that are novel pairings and outcrossings. But Ava is one of my 2 adult females, and she's on deck for breeding. She is a 2018, so she's 6 years old now, and she's definitely ready. The other one, she just doesn't look quite as ready to me, so I made the decision that I wanted to be conservative with her, and also because the market on boas is down, I'm not going to be dropping a bunch of litters of Argentine boas and then trying to move them too cheaply, because you kind of have to be thoughtful when you're producing boas. Not only can you produce them in the nuts and bolts of breeding them, but also in whether or not it's a good idea. And I just think that especially when you're talking about full-size large boas, and you're talking about higher end boas, which are both part and parcel harder to move, I'm just being conservative. And also that female, she just didn't look quite as a nice weight. This girl's got great condition on her. She's actually real chunky, and she just looks ready to go, and the other one doesn't. I actually got a bag of bad rabbits in, and it caused a couple of regurges when I test fed to animals, and she was one of them, unfortunately. And so that other female, she suffered a regurg back in August, and I think I just give her another year. She's only 6. It's not unreasonable to say they have to be 7 or 8 before they can breed anyways. But Ava is ready to go. I'm going to put her with Chaco initially. Chaco is another, he's not from the same litter. He is more of the line-bred white type of the Ancient Reproduction stock. They call him, I think he's calling him MAXX White. I don't know if Chaco is actually MAXX White, but when I show him in a separate video, you're going to see how much more significantly white he is than her. I don't know if you can see her, but she's got these great colors, this great pattern. He's got a similar pattern and whatnot, but just the white markings on him are bolder, thicker, and brighter. And so that was a different way. When Bob went to line breeding for MAXX Pink, he also went the other way, MAXX White. And to be honest, if you haven't seen the MAXX Whites, or you're considering a MAXX Pink, or you're in talks with Bob G, ask him about the MAXX Whites. They're wild. And I'll tell you the other thing, and this is just something that took me a while to realize by looking at these guys, and I think this is probably why Bob G went with MAXX Whites, and I'm sure he realizes too, because he's way smarter and out in front of me on this. But to create MAXX Pink, you have to reduce the dark coloration in these. So I think MAXX White has synergy with MAXX Pink, if that makes sense. Meaning that you can't show up red over black. To get more red, once you start getting this much red into animals, you start having you start losing real estate where it's light enough to show more red. So as we go farther and farther in, I think one of the things you need to do is be stripping out some of the dark colors in them to really show more of that MAXX Pink if you want to. And I don't know where Bob's headed with this. You know, it's like, I can see Bob coming up with MAXX Red in his lifetime. It's just kind of wild. But other than that, these are wonderful, wonderful species of boas. Unlike the true red-tailed boas, they are much hardier. They're a temperate species of boa constrictors, so they can handle cooler in the evenings. They can handle nighttime drops. They don't need it as constant and steady. So if you think of like tropical means really pretty steady, day to night, and also just generally through the year, it's much more steady. Whereas these guys can handle a lot more variation, which makes them a much hardier animal, a much more durable animal. I'll just tell you, like, I love true red-tailed boas, and they're not hard to keep, and they're not like fragile tissue paper, but compared to the other boas, they are more finicky. And the Argentine boas are just a much hardier option of full-size boa. They are as hardy, or probably I'd argue more hardy than like boa imperadors. I don't really know. I haven't kept too many imperadors, but they're wicked hardy. I'll tell you guys that in the wintertime I keep them in my cold room, and the wintertime it might be 65 in there during the daytime, and they have a light bulb up to like 85 that they could be basking under, but they're oftentimes, if they haven't been fed, especially the males, are sitting on the cold end. So it's kind of wacky how cold they're. Like, they're cold to the touch. Like when I'm in there, I'm working with them, I'm like in a sweatshirt and a beanie, and they'll be cold to the touch, even though they have that heat lamp and a heat mat going all the time. They're not actually selected, so they can handle it. Their humidity needs are much more moderate, so I've never had problems with them shedding. I've never had any issues, except for this last one that I got a bad batch of feeders that were literally probably rotten because it made two of my animals puke when I test fed that bag. Both of them puked, so I hucked them. But you don't have regurg issues like you do with true red tails and things like that. And so they're just a great animal. They're also a better temperament for a companion animal. They're calmer. They don't get all squirrely on you. You know, I don't know. One of these days I'll have to pull out a big true red tail and an Argentine to show you their handling difference. But this is a much more tractable animal in general. And their temperaments, as babies, they're hissy like true red tails, but they don't actually bite like true red tails. So overall, these guys are really great companion animals. I think they're wonderful. The one thing I'll caution you guys about these is they're big animals. They really are. They're full-size boas. The potential to have a 10-foot boa is there. These are 6 years old, and I think she's right about 7 feet. Expect her to be in the like 8-9 foot range as an adult and be significantly girthier than this, but don't discount size as a challenge in keeping, guys. It's just one of those things. It's like these big cages that I keep them in, they're 6 foot by 3 foot by 2 foot. That's a coffin. Imagine a coffin in your bedroom or a coffin in your apartment. I waited until I had a house of my own before I really got into the size boas, and I encourage you to just think about that, because it is something to think about. The size cages, I had to laugh when I was reading National Geographic and they're showing these little like mini apartments in parts of Asia that are super populated, and literally I had to laugh, almost sad, because the cages I keep these in are the exact same dimensions as the mini apartments that they have in Asia that I was reading about in National Geographic. So just remember, if you get into these guys, they are a sizable animal. They deserve a big cage. You will benefit from a big cage. They will use it. They'll be out and about. The way I like to keep these guys is with the 12 hours on during the daytime, halogen or incandescent light, and then I just have a small heat mat about the size of the surface area of the animal when it's curled up that I leave on all the time, just so they have a little hot spot to retreat to. But I do let their areas get pretty cold. So that's just kind of what I tell you about their care. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put her on a table, and I'm going to pick up the camera and hope I can get some better shots of her, because I know that me standing and holding them is not always the best way to get shots of these animals. But I'm excited. I've never produced this species before. They're supposed to be fairly similar in breeding to BCC, so hopefully, but this is brand new for me. And I hope to produce some of these. But the funny thing, when I filmed, I posted a picture of her yesterday because I was like, wow, she looks great, because she was in shed, and I just walked in and she was sitting under a heat lamp. I thought she looked great, but she actually hadn't shed yet. She shed yesterday. So I posted all these pictures. One of the pictures, actually the one that's the photo thumbnail on this video, I took it yesterday before she had shed, but this is what she actually looks like in shed, or after shed. So check this out. This is not a morph. This is not like a predictably heritable morph. This is polygenic line breeding. All the work of Bob Guerriere. So they're really great animals. She eats, she'll eat anything from a medium rat, small chickens, up to about a 2-pound rabbit. I really like to feed her like 3/4 pound, 1 pound rabbits, or large rats. I think those are about perfect. You can actually, in my experience, boas do better with a slightly heavier rabbit than a rat. I mean, by that I mean like a 1-pound rabbit sits in them less heavy than a XL rat for whatever reason. But this is just what they look like. They're just real tractable animals. She's the bee's knees. They're really great. And the last thing I'm going to try doing, this might be hard to do, is I want to take a shot of her belly, because Argentine boas have really unique bellies. Let me see, how am I going to do this? And you can start looking at them, and I should do some belly shots of the true red tails too, because they're all super variable, and people don't ever really think about the bellies, but I do a lot. And the one thing I will tell you about the bellies is, and how do I say this? There was somebody on one of the Argentine Boa forums. Oh, she's got me wrapped up in my arm. Oh, lost control here. Okay, hold on. But she's such a good-tempered animal. I don't have a nervous Argentine like I do true red tails, but let's see if I can get this shot. In one of the boa groups, somebody posted that they had rescued an Argentine boa and they wanted to know if it was pure or not. And I always just am a little cynical when people ask those questions, because it's like, basically it's groupthink, and I think a lot of times even what they'll end up doing is they'll be like, oh, this person said it's pure, and then they just run with it. And you know, they get the first response as pure, and a lot of people were saying, that's pure, and he's like, sweet, and then he's talking about breeding it and all this other stuff. But the thing that really showed me that it wasn't pure, and I'll just tell you that I have a hard time recognizing pure versus not pure BCOs, just because I don't have a lot of experience with known hybrids. I'll tell you that I've seen some hybrids that were pretty obviously BCO influenced, but not pure. But here's what I'll tell you that was a dead giveaway for me on his. He had a shot of its belly like this, and it was a creamy white belly with black spots on it. It looked like chocolate chip ice cream. And I'll just tell you that from all the BCOs that I have, and you know, mention if you own one that you know is pure, but they don't have white base belly colors. They have this charcoal gray base with these little other spacklings and speckles in them. But that was really what gave it away to me that it wasn't pure. But I just like to point out the bellies on these guys. That's what was the giveaway to me. The other things that were kind of a giveaway, the body shape was not just right. I'll tell you that I think it was high Argentine influence, but it just wasn't pure. The tails on these guys, they're distinctive. Look at that tail. It's shorter. The number of actual, like, what would be considered, like, you know, like the red tails, on a red tail, they'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, hopefully 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever. But, you know, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's kind of that stuff. The overall shape of these guys is a little different than a lot of the other boas. So that's just what I tell you, and just point out that's something that a lot of people that work with these I've just never heard mentioned. But if you've looked at enough of the bellies, that's a dead giveaway. About the purity of that one, and it's just something to say. But and I'm not calling that guy out, and I'm not going to mention it. I'm not meaning to make an example. I'm more as an example of the bellies. I don't think he was doing anything wrong. But this is Eva. She's named after Evita Eva Perón of Argentina, and she's wonderful. And I'm going to put Chaco over her first, and I will make a video about him. And hopefully these guys will lock up and produce something for me. I'd be excited to produce these. It's a new species for me. These are really beautiful animals. I think they're one of the better large boas for people to get into. I'll just tell you that when I produce animals, part of it is a mind to what's appropriate to be producing a lot of, and what are going to make people have a good experience. And I think for people that can handle a large boa, these are one that will make people real happy. So yeah, that's just what I will tell you guys. I will also make a video about Choco and show you what he's like, but he's a very similar pattern, but much more white. A lot more of that black is stripped out. So there you go. That's just what I say. I hope that's of enjoyment to you. Take care. Thank you so much for all the interviews you guys have been showing. Take care. Bye-bye.